recording.
All right.
All right, welcome to the bus, everybody.
You're either on the bus or off the bus.
And right now we're on the bus. Today,
We
celebrating.
are on the bus.
Exactly. We're celebrating April 20th, 2020, otherwise known as 420, a preferred holiday of a lot of
Day
people.
and the day before that, we celebrated Bicycle Day. Well, Tony and I did.
Whereas I was more of a trip sitter and somewhat of a spirit guide. So, yeah. So I guess we should just start with simple introductions. Seeing as this is the first podcast, I am your resident hippie, otherwise known as Mohammed El Habel. You can also just
And
known,
hello there.
yeah, also just
I'm Swindlel, also known as Jacob.
yeah. We will not be the only people attending these podcasts. There will be more with many guests, hopefully in the future. But as of right now, it's just us two. We're just gonna dive right into some talk. So you actually had a bit of an experience earlier today with
An experience.
yeah, well, it's the experience you could say. Like we all have a certain amount of experiences, but this one specifically, it has to do with Mr. Thin Blue Line.
Mr. Thin Blue Line, Mr. Thin Blue Line. Oh gosh, I won't call out any names here, but although you could go to my Instagram and look it up, but I'm not gonna say it out loud. But so I was just reposting a Twitter post as always, and pretty much I'll read out the tweet. The main rift in the progressive wing of the Democrat Party appears to be between those who read Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent and those who read the Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And I wrote, "Miss me with that J.K. Rowling propaganda," because the writings of J.K. Rowling are in fact peak neoliberalism. By the way, not supporting conservatism. I'm in fact an anarcho-communist. So we got this motherfucker over here who decides to write, "Yeah, Lamau, the libs suck, power to the Republican Party." And I respond, "Democrats stab you in the back, Republicans stab you in the front. This is an anarcho-communist account that doesn't believe in the two-party politics. Both parties are inherently right-wing and protect the interests of the ruling class." For whatever reason, he decided to like that, and he wrote, "Exactly, bro. Me too. Hashtag thin blue line." If you don't understand what thin blue line means, that's basically like an indirect way of saying you support the concept of police. I mean, so I basically respond, police are a statist invention whose only real purpose is to enforce inherently oppressive laws and protect the capital and private property of the same ruling class I mentioned. Police are class traitors, ACAB, also known as all cops are bastards. And this guy had the audacity. I don't even. I like literally just broke the Westworld programming right here. He wrote, "You're right, man. Private property is very important to keep safe." What the fuck are you talking about? I don't even. I haven't responded yet, but I intend on responding by means of saying, "Look, there's a difference between private property and private possessions. Look, when I say I want to get rid of private property, I just mean like the ability for people to hoard literal capital by means of, let's say, an entire field to grow crops, like acres at a time."
Some of which isn't even used. Like the fact that there's a
Yeah,
hospital up for. I can't remember which town it was specifically, but I remember a couple weeks ago I was seeing about this hospital that like nobody, like the specific business owned, but it wasn't staffed or anything, and the government
hmm
was trying to find a way to seize the property for the sake of the fact that we're
they call it.
during a pandemic, and it's like
You know,
that's
it,
yeah, well, that's like one of the few times that when the federal government's trying to exercise its, or it might have been a state side issue, but when they're trying to exercise their power, that's one of the few times I've seen it as a good time to exercise it. Like when the greed of people is preventing others from things like fucking medication. Like you're gonna hoard a hospital that could be staffed with people to have another route for other people to fucking be safe and secure during a pandemic. For what reason? For money.
yeah, and in times like COVID-19, it's a terms like, are you like you're for whatever reason the corporate state synergy is more concerned with, maintaining their economic systems over the actual people who inhabit them. Like, it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of a socialized economy in this time of desperate need instead of, let's say, giving people $1 million stimulus checks for no apparent reason while everybody else is having to survive off of $1,000.
Or
And some
some of
people
us
have
might
yet,
not even be
or not even that
receiving
much,
it.
or even able to get that.
Exactly. It's this is one of those times where when they say things like communism and socialism are inherently evil, well, let's look at the system we live now, a capitalist economy in which its people are starving and are unable to work to bring themselves out of a situation, yet hard work and sacrifice is the American dream, am I right?
Yep, it's that Puritan ideal that no matter how hard you work, you can obtain that American dream. And let's be clear here, that American dream has been very inconsistent throughout the ages. I mean, at this point, I'd say the American dream right now, like at least for me growing up, was the idea that you could have a house, a good paying job that gave you enough time for free time. People don't have that. People do not have that for shit.
Speaking from the front lines.
Mm.
I would like to know, by the way, for what was said earlier about the idea of like being against the thin blue line. It's not necessarily the idea like the ACAB that all police are inherently evil. It's more so the system within which they work.
I wouldn't even say it's necessarily just that. I mean, like, yeah, you're good with that. I mean, I'm not going to criticize you, but based on, my more anarchist, communist leanings, it doesn't matter who they are. I mean, yeah, you can say, like, yeah, they're a good person, but the whole concept of at least from the anarchist communist perspective, is that they have no right to exist in the sense that, like, that role, because they only reinforce the oppressive laws and the private property
Yeah,
management.
the role itself is the issue, not necessarily the person within the role. It's the role itself. That's what I was getting at. Yeah,
Yeah.
because the entire idea of like a policing system is that it like there should be
Oh,
some like we talked about this earlier and you mentioned like the idea of a constable over a police officer, and I agree, like there should be some sort of some at least some form of people to keep us safe from ourselves and from each other if people are going to be that way, which human beings are. But it shouldn't be to the level that it's at now where they have the that kind of level of free reign that some of them have, because without trying to start like people who may hear this on something like very hate filled, the entire idea of like the Black Lives Matter movement is not so much the fact that it's a race war, it's more so the fact that there are police officers out there, people that we are supposed to trust with our lives, who are able to exercise violent force without repercussions. That's the entire idea. At least for me, when I see that, that's how I see it. And some of them do exercise that violent force without a second thought, and they don't face repercussions. They don't even face that much of
that reminds me of something. Quote I saw that about this whole topic we're talking about. Even with those those police officers that do manage to do the right thing, they don't
Mhm.
last that long. They really do not last that long. Even if they are managing to exercise legitimate justice, they do not really last that
Well, of
long.
course, because the system's designed to break you down and force you to be that molded soldier. And speaking of soldiers, it's the same thing in the military. I have a mother who was in the Navy, and her boyfriend is a veteran. They both served their time, and it's nothing against them, but the military itself, the operations conducted by the military, are not things that I would agree with and
Mhm.
things that I find morally correct. But all the same, it's nothing against the people who serve in the military because they have no choice once they sign up. Once they sign away their life to the military, at least 8 years of it, at the very least, 7, 8 years, they are not allowed to go against the grain. They're not allowed to disregard orders, no matter how incorrect or wrong they may find them, either on a moral or a logical scale. If your commander tells you to march headstrong into the enemy territory to have your life taken as a meat shield, you have to do that because otherwise they'll just shoot you because you'll be committing an act of treason. You see things like that. It's not as big when we look at our police force, but these people spend their lives going to a police academy, spending years that they would spend maybe at college for an engineering degree or biology degree, to become a doctor, things like that. Instead of that, they chose to become a police officer, and they go in being bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, happy to be protecting and serving, but then they have to listen to the orders, otherwise they wasted their lives for this goal. You know?
Speaking of the word protect and serve, you ever notice how in a lot of police cars they put that in quotations?
Yeah. I mean, granted, it's supposed to be
Oh,
a quote, but I mean, it's taken on a very ironic,
it's
very
very,
ironic
very
view now.
ironic.
Of course.
I don't want to accidentally go on a Noam Chomsky rant about how, yeah, people are putting out their lives on the line to protect, in the mindset of, protecting the country. But
Of
deep
course.
down, ever since, the U.S. has been a modern superpower, there haven't been any legitimate, acts of quote-unquote war to be taken out, because a lot of them have been literally orchestrated vis-a-vis proxy conflicts to give the manufacturer of consent to, let's say, destabilize a country for, let's say, its resources, and say we're actually just, and say out loud, hey, we're getting rid of the terrorists here. There's an oppressive, regime we're trying to, get rid of, but in fact, we're also going to expropriate all of their, to further, our, accumulation of capital in the modern world, which
I
it
mean,
all comes.
yeah, and the thing is that that's all part of the military-industrial complex too.
Hmm.
If we're getting the American people rallied against a common threat, the evil that's across the thing. They don't care what that evil is. Their government's telling them that's evil, that's negative. We're against that. All right. You can look back to the Korean War. You can look back to the Cold War. You can look in the war in Afghanistan. This is not something new to the United States government. This is not something new to any government. The people will listen to what their government tells them because they trust their government.
And I'll even add on to that. The only reason why they do that, they get rid of all the dissenters. All the who actually legitimately speak out. They get silenced
Yeah, and that's
by
why that's
means of
why
mass incarceration,
yeah,
literal murder. I mean, you name it,
that is why
anything
I
to get
left
and that's
Vietnam.
a yeah, and there's actually a big part in that too nowadays, and with the people who are legitimately spreading the truth. In many ways, the same mass media complexes that feed that military-industrial complex, they somehow manage to capitalize just off of that idea alone, and to get people appropriated by the idea. Like just a few days ago, Donald Donald Trump is appropriating the word liberation as a means of saying, "Oh, we're gonna liberate these places so people can work." What
I
the
had
fuck is
seen
that?
that. Yeah, that he was
Like
that he
you,
was so supposedly going to be liberating the states when in reality he was just taking away the powers of the people who were running them,
yeah,
which is
he's
unconstitutional in its
he's
right.
trying to exercise fascistic or fascistic reign over these states. He's popularizing. I mean, he already was a populist, but he's only just pushing the agenda further. And now it's just, holy shit! Now you got people, literally standing outside of state houses with rifles and masks.
But the thing that everybody seems to forget is history too when it comes to all this shit that we have to deal with. I mean, nobody even remembers the fucking words said by George Washington, the first president of the United States himself, who didn't even want to be a president, regardless. But the first president of the United States himself, one of the founding fathers, said that we shouldn't be falling into a bipartisan system. And what happened? We fell into a bipartisan system. And now we're further and further into the fucking muck hole of bullshit to the point where the Republicans and Democrats have flip flopped so many times on their views of
Oh yeah,
progressiveness and
yeah, yeah.
everything. It's
That vote blue no matter who shit. I mean,
vote blue no matter who.
I'm fairly certain that the Democratic Party has done. I mean, like there was a point in history, I can't remember exactly when, that like everything
Well,
that,
the
let's say
Republicans used to
somebody
be the
who's
progressives. The Republicans were the
Yeah,
ones who believed that we should free the slaves, and were the people that were trying to
it
give rights to people. Well, I mean, to at least some extent. I mean, it was still all
it's
run by
modern day
England.
newspeak. I mean, at this point, I literally, whenever somebody uses like in a regular sentence, he wants to say, "Oh, I'm thinking a little bit conservatively about, let's say, my net flow or whatever." Then you get somebody say, "I'm being a little liberal with my time." It's like I can't use those words because literally in my head, images from
People
the
are
movie
using.
They Live. The movie They Live comes up in my head, except in the form of like, imagine if you put on headphones and like everything everybody else says sounds literally what it should be.
It's as if people need to go back to their English classes from freaking fifth and sixth grade to learn the meanings of liberal and conservative on the actual vocabulary, fucking dictionary definition. Liberal meaning lax and free, whereas conservative means more like, oh, I'm at a loss for words. Maybe I need to go back to my English courses. But you know what I'm trying to say. It's not conservative like the fucking
Yeah.
conservatives and liberal like the liberals. It's the dictionary definition is so much different from the parties, and that's the same thing with Republican and Democrat as well. Democrats don't even believe in like in a democracy point of view, and Republicans don't even believe in a Republican point of view. They're just called
It's
that.
just they've appropriated the
That's
words.
exactly what I was gonna say. Yeah, they appropriate. They appropriated the government's design by like the Greeks and the Romans, and then they're like, oh yeah, let's model our system after this, but let's make it better for the people who've got money.
And the irony is, the Greeks actually did have legitimate democracy, and this is far from democracy. People
Yeah.
essentially have been convinced that real democracy, I guess, electing sock puppets of a corporate interest mass media conglomerate who don't have your real interest at heart, as opposed to like giving you the impression that you have that like those ideas that you're seeing on the screen. I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah. And
Like, I mean, like here's an example right here. Like whenever we get cold and flu season, or nowadays the C word quarantine. In these times, like yeah, like you'll see things on the news about like, all right, wash your fucking hands. Don't like be sure to check in about your symptoms. But at any other point in the year, do you ever see anybody on the screen say, all right, you need to wash this, 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 and this? It was like, no, it gets concentrated the fuck out of in these specific periods, pre fucking programmed. And like the only reason why we have like such a big issue with this right now, like think about it. You have like throughout the year, nobody paying that much. I mean, like at least it's only like a really small percentage of people who attention to how clean their home is. And then like all of a sudden you have this, and then it's like a mass influx of hundreds of thousands, quite possibly millions of people who haven't put in any effort into sanitizing their basic, environments, and no wonder.
it's all a game to the people up top too. I mean, we
Oh
can
yeah,
all
of
agree on
course.
that. It's all a fucking game. They're playing us to their strengths. Lest we look at all the creepy little fucking ad techniques that like you can look up on your computer or on your phone or whatever device you have available. You can look it up and it's right there in front of your eyes. The fact that they're using this science and technology to trick us into buying shit. That's
There is a really good documentary I saw called Surveillance Capitalism. I forgot her name. But basically the idea is that especially with Google,
mm,
any Google-enabled device thing you do, every little place you go, it is recorded, and pretty much from what they get, they average out exactly what they think as a consumer you will buy or
and your
want to
phone
buy.
doesn't even need to be on or connected to the
Nope,
Wi-Fi for that to happen.
nope. It records it, even just the
That.
smallest little ding. It
Mhm.
just suddenly is just like it'll just transmit all that
Because the
to
thing
those
is
servers.
even
And
if your phone is completely shut down and Wi-Fi off, as soon as your phone turns back on, or it doesn't even need to be connected to the internet, because it can bounce off like because apparently your phone's able to access uh,
yep.
all these fucking frequencies. It's able to access all this connection, all the cell data, all the towers. Yet you have to pay for that. But regardless of
Oh,
that,
speaking of cell towers, you want to talk real quick about that 5G nonsense?
oh yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But just like the
uh,
fact that like not only can your phone access that for free already, but you still have to pay 50, $60 a month
Mm-hmm.
to access it. Moving on
You know,
from
have
that,
this. Yeah.
as soon as your phone is within the vicinity of that, Google's sending out these data packets and one after another of your personal information that they've been selling out to all these private investors so that way they can go on and as soon as you log on your computer, what's the first thing you see? You're at a coffee shop, what's the first thing you see when you log on your computer but an ad for a fucking espresso machine or some shit? Because you were saying to your friend, you know, it'd be really cool to get one of those for the house. Oh, look at this.
Ding!
Isn't that funny? Yeah, I see an advertisement here on Amazon for a bunch of coffee stuff. Huh, crazy.
You know, you gotta see, like, I'd say you really have. I mean, like, I'm definitely calling out people for this. You have to be really, really, really fucking brainwashed to think that's a good. Suddenly be like, oh, the little, Big Brother's listening to every little ever want, just like a little hamster, you suddenly get the
Exactly.
water bottle refill.
Because
Like if you're not worried, you aren't paying enough attention
because if
because
yeah, because if a privatized corporation like Google is allowed to do this, who the fuck's to say that the government's not allowed to do it either? They operate outside the law.
oh no, Google was definitely selling shit to the U.S. government. It is
Well, who
happening.
says they even need to? Like, what's to stop them from just doing this themselves? I mean, they've got so much technology, and this isn't some conspiracy theorist shit. You know, this isn't me sounding crazy. This is a
On
fact
the
that
word of seriously,
The United States government has had technology in the past that they kept from the public because they were using it for military operations. Things, for example, cell phones. Cell phone was a military technology that they used to communicate, you know, in place of something like a walkie-talkie, you know, GPS, global positioning
wasn't the
systems.
wait?
Those were military.
I don't know how to fact check this, but what in the Soviet Union?
Well, I'm not sure where specifically it was invented, but I know here in the United States it was used as a military like technology before it was introduced to the public.
Yeah,
And it's the same thing with GPS as well. The global positioning systems used by the military before it was even available for the people. And that is a fact that I vetted with a veteran that I know. Hell, I know one of the people who's working on the project to fucking design the radios that we now use, like CB radios and stuff. I know somebody who's on that project for the military. It's not all that crazy to think that they have more technology that hasn't been introduced to the public yet. And then later on, all this will just be a fun little game you can open on your phone where your kid can track what his friend's doing and send little fucking videos to, like, it's all crazy. But yeah, let's get on to that 5G thing you were talking about.
5G. I mean, like, look, I'm just gonna go ahead and summarize it really quickly. People used to think the same thing about electricity. People used to think, like if you truly are concerned about, like, radiation from a 5G tower, you might as well get rid of your fucking TV, your fucking phone, your fucking microwave.
Exactly.
Better you just like, I mean, it's only going to improve
Your
your
phone
interconnectivity.
your phone already produces radiation just simply by existing. You know, you having that in your pocket and up to your head all the time will cause mutations. Like radiation is fucking everywhere.
You want to talk mutations and real damage to the body here. The oh fucking my ear. People have a false. Well, I'm gonna take a small stroll off the stop of the road and talk about the war on drugs and altered consciousness. We're no stranger to altered consciousness. It's all a matter of what the state says is and isn't legal. And in this case, like, people are more than happy to, let's say, get addicted to opioids,
Mm-hmm.
consistently drink alcohol, and let's see, let's just throw a few more in there as well. Caffeinate themselves beyond measure.
Smoke tobacco.
yeah, smoking tobacco. It literally, I mean, not
Well,
necessarily just
not
tobacco itself, but like
processed tobacco that's filled with like
processed
excessive
tobacco that has
chemicals.
been legitimately engineered to kill you. But
Yeah,
for whatever reason, just because the government doesn't say that's bad for you, and like it's automatically it's off the list because it's like I've invested so much, I guess, pre-programmed support in my state to like have my interests at heart.
I say just legalize all of it, from fucking methamphetamine all the way to tetrahydrocannabinol, every
Mhm.
single chemical substance. Because if somebody's gonna be like, put the warnings on the labels. Obviously, tell people what's gonna happen to them. But if you legalize all of it, I mean, here's to think about it from a
Nobody's gonna
more,
worry about it.
yeah, here's to think about it from a more ego, well, not well, yeah, a more economical point of view, more capitalist point of view, and a fascist point of view. By legalizing all this shit, we can then tax it, and then that's money going to the state and federal governments by having people have to get licenses and things to sell these products, be they what they may. But not only is that revenue stream, that also brings a lot of people out of fucking jails and shit. That's money out of the jail systems that we're having to spend. We can spend more time refining it, hopefully, and at least we're only having to deal with people who are like rapists and murderers rather than people who might be on drugs and instead of being punished need help. You know?
I'll add on really quick. One of the main reasons why they haven't legalized, let's say, all those mainstream psychedelics and all, is because they literally dissolve, that thought process of, okay, the state said it's legal, I'm not going to
Well,
do it.
LSD was
But no,
legal.
like
LSD.
speaking from my legitimate consumption of LSD, it really does make you think,
Yeah.
why is this so, like, no wonder this is illegal.
Exactly. But the thing is it was legal until the United States government started their MK Ultra trials, realized they couldn't use it to their fucking benefit, and then they made it illegal. They couldn't mind control people with it, which is what they were trying to do.
uh I mean, I'd say that's just part of it. I mean, I'd say one of the big issues, and especially Terrence McKenna was very, like hush hush about this. I mean, not really hush hush about this, but he was like, it's more or less, if it destabilizes, I guess, the means of controlling the general public opinion, which in the 1960s that was very prevalent,
Especially because of
before
the
it was pretty
wars that
much
the
banned. I
government
mean,
was going on.
not like, yeah, the war. I mean, like, literally, a few, like, one or two hits of LSD was more than enough to like help somebody realize
Completely open someone's
this
mind.
is wrong. This is really, really wrong. And not to mention, LSD was the catalyst towards, let's say, psilocybin, MDMA, all that stuff.
Just because when you see in the movies that drugs are being drugs are being pumped into somebody to control them, don't let that make you think that taking it away from somebody can't do the same effect. Because keeping these mind expanding chemicals from people is harmful in a sense. And that's why I'm saying just legalize all of it. You fucking then at least we can teach it in a curriculum in schools better, because I learn all sorts of shit about alcohol and cigarettes. You know anything that any and everything that'll do to you, but they will cover like heroin, meth, opium, or sorry, opium is heroin, but like they'll cover everything else all in one little section, and it's like these are all bad for you, but they don't tell us why they're bad for you, what they'll do to you, and then next thing you know, you're on the street fucking scratching yourself raw just for a hit of fucking heroin.
Hmm.
And the thing is if you make those things legal, another thing is it takes the fun out of it for children. Kids are killing themselves on crazy drugs and stuff. They're snorting fucking aerosol cans and stuff to get a fix because
Is
they
that a
find it
thing
cool.
now?
That yeah, dude, whippets.
I didn't know that. Oh, whippets. Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
that's more nitrous oxide. I thought you meant like that's like
Well,
whippets are more along the line of I thought you get like let's say some whipped cream and you pretty much
that's
like
the
eat it and
preferred.
huff it.
Yeah, but like you can take an aerosol can because they're compressed nitrous, like they're compressed uh, air, like that fume there. It's not a good high, I wouldn't imagine, but it's very dangerous as well and can kill you. But there's children out doing this crazy shit. I saw somebody on this app TikTok. If I'm sure people listening to this know it, but she was trying nutmeg because it is a psychoactive chemical, or yeah, it's a psychoactive plant to a certain extent. The
Oh,
preferred
believe me.
amount is about 2 teaspoons to a bottle of water, and she messed it up and put 2 tablespoons and had violent vomiting and diarrhea and sweating and all sorts of other symptoms because she made a miscalculation because she was
When I
doing
was
this at home.
younger, I had no idea of the, psychoactive pharmacology of nutmeg, and I was trying to make granola bars, and I thought, huh, I heard this nutmeg stuff's pretty good on granola bars. I guess I'll try this. It was like, 13, maybe 12 at the time, 14 at the most. And like I put like at least like, a couple, it was like maybe it's like cinnamon. Oh, I was wrong. When I ate it, I ate the whole thing by the way. I felt so like, dissociated. I felt so almost like hazy. I mean,
It's not fun.
I didn't try weed until like at least a couple years after that. I didn't try weed until I was 17, by the way. And like
15 for me, I believe.
I didn't, and even then I didn't even really get, well, I mean, I already knew I was like a heavyweight. It doesn't take it takes a lot for me just to get, out of my mind to the point the mothership is about to beam me up into space.
Take me
And when
home,
my
I'm lost.
friend came down from Colorado, and like it was like, all right, let's like it just became a game of all right, we got through like 3 cigar, Fidel Castro sized joints and like 3 edibles each, and that's when it really started to hit me because I started feeling those familiar feelings of oh my gosh,
You
like
looked
I
like you were
think
getting it.
I broke the threshold. I found it. No wonder weed because maybe it was this fucking nutmeg experience. Like it got me used to the idea of being like really beamed out of my mind. So I honestly that might explain a few things, but then again, I'm not gonna use that as a benchmark as to why I just happen to be a heavyweight. I can take a lot if like that guy is pretty tall. He's like 6'2". These were pretty big joints, and these were pretty heavy. Edibles at that. So at the very least, 5'9" me could handle that. I mean, that's probably it. That's probably why. I mean, that's mostly why I will not usually get weed, especially even though on 420 I'm not gonna like even if I did have weed, I probably wouldn't smoke it unless it was like really good stuff because, like I said, I'm a heavyweight. That stuff just goes right through me, and I don't feel it's my metabolism.
Mm. Yeah, I would definitely say it's probably your metabolism because you're a much thinner person despite being such a heavyweight
Oh
when it
yeah,
comes to tolerance.
yeah.
Yeah, but like just to finish out my point I was trying to make earlier, if you make it legal,
Mhm.
you, moving on from childhood things people having to learn from it, then when it's out available, that's taking away the power of crime syndicates, you know, fucking why can't I think of the word for it?
Private sector
Yeah,
crime,
yeah, private sector
big
criminals,
pharma.
cartels, all like all these groups that are profiting off the fact that these are illegal are gonna stop profiting off of that and will be forced to become legitimate businesses, which will take away the fact that people are being smuggled across borders with bags of cocaine up their rectum, you know,
Yep.
which is a very dangerous thing. Not just for them, but the fact that if they get caught with that, they are
You don't want
subjugated.
to be a coke mule.
Yeah, they're subjugated and abused by the United States prison system. And some might say that they deserve it, some might say they don't, but regardless of that, if we can avoid it, we should. So,
I'll add on to that. When people want to say, "Oh, they deserve it for doing all this shit," well, guess who's funding the cartels?
exactly.
Guess who? Fucking guess, and you don't see them in jail. No, they're just out there. No, they're continuing on the game. I mean, like I forgot the exact case it was, but it was like in the Mexican desert, suddenly somebody's finding like barrels full of American corporation chemicals just buried under the sand. I'm like, well, I mean, you shouldn't be fucking surprised. U.S. sending all sorts of destabilizers out there, be it them directly or proxy conflicts, to set up the operation they've got going here.
We just gotta hold out, I think.
Yeah, it
Cause
these little capitalism will literally cannibalize on itself, and the right things will happen. Doesn't mean we shouldn't try, because actually, it takes the concerted and full effort of every single person possible to make it happen. I mean, if Fidel fucking Castro can take over Cuba with 82 people, that Batista regime, I mean, who's to say every person who's at least somewhat awake out there, all those enlightened and free spirited individuals, they really put all their effort in, I'd say more than likely we will make it.
Well, here's to hoping, you know. But in the meantime, while we're waiting, for while we're waiting for that freedom to be people, to be fucking together, in some form of unified consciousness, we just gotta think like. While we're waiting, we gotta get interconnected. We gotta build up those boundaries. We gotta. It's gonna sound a little crazy, but like, we've got to do things. We got to train. We got to prepare. There's been many times that we've had to take up arms in the past as human race. Against things like injustice, societal formed injustice, and it will happen again. You know.
I will add on to that. I used to be, very much the swashbuckling anarcho-communist, being ready to, take up arms as many as I could, really pretty much just recreating a scene from, let's say, like, flat out recreating a scene from, I don't know, the Spanish Civil War, for example, or, like, more recently Rojava, but more, not necessarily saying I've become less radical. Have realigned the focus. Not to say it will not happen, because it will happen. There are going to be points where people are going to be shooting each other in the streets. People are going to be getting stabbed and hit with blunt objects, rockets being fired back and forth. But what it all comes down to is the first revolution to be fought is the revolution of the self. Because in the end, we have to share this world with whoever remains.
Mm-hmm.
We have to share the world that remains. And really, it's only, yes, people are going to, once we take out, or at the very least exile, or at least incarcerate, imprison necessarily, but, destabilizing, the unjust rules and control of those select, few ruling class, that handful of individuals, and, really showing people that market abolition of the resources in the economy can occur to where, literally nobody's going to want to commit crimes after, having that fully automated luxury space gay communism, or whatever they call it.
Which isn't to say that, criminal action won't happen.
That's
human
of
nature.
Course.
Shit happens. People murder each other. People steal. It's human nature. But at least, we'll be protecting ourselves better than the fucking government seems to. Because look at I'm going to just... bear with me for a moment, but you look at the thieves that we have in prison, right? Those thieves are usually petty, small-time thieves. Maybe they stole something larger, like somebody's car, Grand Theft Auto, whatever. But they're usually people who don't have a lot of money, who aren't doing well off. That's why they're stealing. They don't have things for their own.
And that's why I proposed market abolition. Like, if you really abolish the false scarcity and commodity of resources, then there really wouldn't be much reason for thievery to be occurring in the first place, because there's no real need to be profit to be made.
Exactly. But the thing is then you look at the real thieves, the guys who are the men and women who are profiting off of that false scarcity.
I forgot her name, but I'm not going to name drop here. There was that lady right before the COVID-19 outbreak who was they literally found out she was insider trading right before all this, and pretty much she's got hundreds of thousands, she's got, at least for the US, that is, she's got, the blood of about 40,000 in her hands.
But they don't care.
And I'm scot-free, I'm pretty sure. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think she walks scot-free.
I mean, it's happened before. I mean, you can look at the latest the Ponzi scheme that happened back in
2000.
06? Was it 06 or 08?
I thought it was 08. It was 08. It was 08.
It was definitely 08.
The mortgage crisis.
Yeah, the mortgage crisis and the Ponzi scheme. And all the money that they used to bail out the fuckers who were responsible for the Ponzi scheme, if they had distributed that to every man, woman, and child that was alive in the United States at that time, and that's including a lot of the people who are going to be listening to this podcast, including myself and Jacob here, if we were all given equal parts of that money that they used to bail out the fuckers who stole from the American people in the first place, we would have each gotten over $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what that could have done for your parents. Think about what that could have done for your older siblings. Think about what that could be doing for you right now. And went to the people who were screwing others over.
I mean, right after that, once the witch hunt started happening, getting rid of just cutting a few off the top of the cake, just satiate the media desire to say, okay, we got rid of the ones that were doing this. That didn't stop at least those couple thousand individuals who managed to get inhuman amounts of funds to offshore that. It's still offshore. And it's more than they could ever use in any lifetime. I mean, more so recently, what was it? Was it the Pentagon Papers? For sure, I can't remember exactly. I think it was the Pentagon Papers, and basically it exposed essentially how you have these. Actually, I can probably find it right now. I can read it out. I know Tom Steyer's on there. I remember I was having a conversation with somebody in my class, and was trying to say, I was like, oh, he's an eccentric billionaire who's donating his funds. Well, I'm pretty sure he was interacting with he was in the Pentagon Papers. And let me just find it. You can talk about something else until I find it. I should take
that philanthropism.
It's peak neoliberalism. It's not solving the issue. It's centralized.
You can't really see my air quotes.
I mean, Batman's a good allegory for that. He'd rather dress up like a fucking bat and perpetuate the growth of more criminals and pre-existing ones than to actually give them real treatment and autonomy. He'd rather just play his little fucking games and give off the impression that the police are necessary and that he's necessary to maintain crime. But my parents died, so it's okay.
I mean, but the thing is you want to look at this so-called philanthropy. Tom Shoes. First off, Tom doesn't exist. Tom is not a person. Tom is not real. Let's get that out of the way right now. Your entire idea of, and for any of you who are not aware, Tom Shoes is an organization where you buy shoes for about, roughly the average price of a shoe would be $80. At least from the last time I checked. It could be anywhere from $60 to $100, who knows. But they're shoes. But regardless, you buy the shoes, and when you buy a pair of shoes, they send a pair of shoes, apparently, supposedly. I can't confirm whether they do or not. But they will send a pair of shoes to someone in need over in the continent of Africa. Okay, so let's unpack this first. So, like I said, Tom doesn't exist. We can all... I mean, it's just... That's basic. The founder of the company, is known as Blake Mycoskie. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I'm pretty sure I am. And he started Tom Shoes with the idea that you buy a pair of shoes is sent to someone. Well, a pair of shoes, on average, costs about, a standard pair of shoes, will cost around $4 to manufacture. So that's $4 for a pair of shoes for you, $4 for a pair of shoes for someone over in Africa. That's $8 for 2 pairs of shoes that you bought at $80. Let's say $60 to be a little more conservative with our price. So that means that they're making $52, but they're being philanthropists? Make no mistake, Tom Shoes is a for-profit company. They're not... I mean, yes, it's a good idea at heart in a sense, but it's all a PR stunt because of the fact that putting those shoes into places we'll keep using Africa because that's the example everybody sees, but if we keep putting them into third world areas, I don't want to say third world countries, third world areas within the countries, all that's doing is it's destabilizing their economy because you have cobblers and shoemakers who want to try selling that stuff on a local level to support their business, but they can't even fucking do that because Americans are coming in, airdropping all these shoes, and what we should be doing is we should be spending all that money giving them access to learn and teach things for themselves so that way they can be self-sufficient. But we don't want that. We want them to rely on us. If we taught these countries to be self-sufficient, if we gave them, not even necessarily taught them, but if we gave them the supplies to be able to keep up in the world, if we gave them access to water and food, you know, it's like the old mantra: give a man a fish and feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for life. That's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be fucking giving away shoes, especially when the company that's supposedly giving them away is profiting $52 or $50 at least from those shoes.
I'd say that's definitely the American privilege right there. We're saying, like, we're generally speaking, these middle class motherfuckers, kind of like generating this idea of what they consider philanthropy and assuming that that's the exact standard for somebody who's living in a destabilized country. It's like, oh, I would never want to be without shoes. I don't have to worry about food or water, but I sure as hell wouldn't want to have to go without shoes.
And speaking of food and water, I've been to Africa before. I have visited Sierra Leone with my family, as my father worked there actually, and from both of their accounts, there are airfields with crates stacked with food that we send that don't even leave the airport because the greed of the people who run the airports, they want money to distribute the food. So that food sits on a hot tarmac, and yes, Africa is very hot, reaching 100 degrees every day on average, and that food is sitting out there, not refrigerated, not stored safely, just in a crate, fucking melting, because people want money to give food to people in need.
That just made me think of a footnote. Africa wasn't always a fucking desert. Fucking colonialism raped the land of its nutrients, and essentially, as a result of that, global climate change responded by essentially creating a very harsh environment. Here's a good example. Good example of how that was combated. Between, I believe, was 1984 to 1989, somewhere around there. Thomas Sankara initiated his 10 million tree initiative, which sought to essentially, give the entire, I believe, what was it? Burkina Faso, pretty much reintroducing literal ecosystems as. And that, here's sorry, I'm but jumbling my words because I am tired as shit.
No, take your time.
Then you got somebody like Mr. Beast. I don't remember the exact figures of that. How many trees?
$21
21.
So 21
21 million.
trees.
Dude. Yeah, it's cool that we have a philanthropist doing this, but it's a little worrying that you have a philanthropist who is, much more geared than the actual governments of the world themselves.
Exactly.
Because even though, Mr. Beast isn't actively out there, being like Bill Gates, literally poisoning children with his polio vaccine, the wrong people in the wrong place is going to prove to be disastrous.
Yeah. I do.
By the way, that whole polio vaccine thing, he actually poisoned all those poor children. I'm not it was real. He poisoned them.
I mean, just speaking on Mr. Beast, I really respect him for a lot of things he does. I watched him when I was I've been watching him since I was younger, and he was just doing little videos in his bedroom with his friend Chris. They would do the crazy, stupid things like counting to 100,000 on camera, things like that.
Oh, my
Eh,
favorite was the dictionary one.
That one was nice. Yeah, that was always like I respect the fact that he's abusing the clickbait idea and then turning it and like giving us the content we asked for. That's a good show of the fact that he's like an authentic person. He's not like writing all these things out like I do this, I do that, but then fucking cheating us and wasting 15, 20 minutes of our lives. He's giving us the content we ask for. But moving on from that, his philanthropy is something worthy of mentioning as well and worthy of praise in this time because if you have somebody who started out just as we start out, or as any of us start out, fucking coming from home, that's the majority of the American people just coming from their home, and he built himself up on the internet to be able to do the things that he wants to do now. And it's not that he's just hoarding all the money to himself. Sure, he lives a comfortable life. I'm sure, like, who wouldn't want to? But he's helping others too. I had seen this one video where this man won this challenge, and by winning the challenge, he got to go on a shopping spree with him, and
Yeah,
he was able
I've
to,
heard about.
yeah, he was able to buy a new home, new cars, completely furnish it, and support his family. That's what he did with his shopping spree, $1 million shopping spree.
And this is why, like, I love, like, like younger me would appreciate, like, highly appreciate, his works of philanthropy, but at the same time, I don't, at least I'm not certain about if he's spoken out against this, but the idea of charity in of itself, yes, charity is a very beautiful thing, but charity is not an effective means of institutionally solving social issues. Yeah, like, yeah, you are helping these, individual acts, sensationalizing it on the internet, but are you really putting in a dent?
Yeah.
At least in these circumstances of, let's say, giving people,
I mean, the tree
the
thing
ride
was
of their
good.
time. The tree
Yeah.
thing was a very good example. Like, do more of that. Be
Yeah, he does do videos where he'll donate to certain shelters and such, for example, you know. But granted, he also has to balance the fact that he's doing these acts while also trying to make sure that he's, you know, I don't want to say profit. Well, he's got to kind of profit off of it in a sense that like he's got to get people invested, emotionally invested, you know? So when you watch a video and you
yeah.
see about the specific man on the street who's homeless and starving and he donates money to him, and then I'm not saying this happened specifically because I can't remember if he has done a video like this. I'm just saying this is as an example. And then he returns to him in another video and helps feed him and stuff. And then another video and he gives him a home and it gets him a job and a car. That emotional investment not only keeps people watching his videos, but it also helps them see more ideas of just simple acts that like I don't think that you or I could go out and start an entire organization purely for the fact of helping everyone. It's just something we can't do as individuals.
I mean, like one of the terms I learned over the years was mutual aid, and I'd be a little bit more inclined to, like, because I don't actively watch or like necessarily, I mean, like out there saying, "Oh, Mr. Beast is like, a messiah" or something like that. I mean, like, far from that. Just being honest here, maybe the
He's
tree situation, but
he's the
mutual aid.
representation of what we want more people to be doing, though. I would
Yeah,
say.
it's just he's indirectly reinforcing the same system that oppresses, even though he is helping these individual like moments. But only like with the exception of a few, like mainly the tree situation. Like the tree situation was absolutely beautiful and shows like yes, you can. There is hope,
And we
but
can come together and
these
yeah.
moments where he's reinforcing, the capitalist consumer stigma, it is a little bother. It does bother me a little bit because given if I had that money, I'd be trying my best to establish mutual aid networks that, not only are like autonomous in their own individual lights, but works of people that are like pretty much winding them up to not even like you've completely broken the threshold of economic, I guess, change.
Yeah. Well, and it is worth mentioning that yeah, he's gaming the system, but at this point, it's not necessarily a negative thing. Just at this point, because rather than gaming the system for his own personal benefit, he is doing it for, at least to some extent, to the benefit of others and to the benefit of the world around him. He's just trying to use the system to the best of his ability
Yeah.
to benefit the most from it. It might not be exactly what we want, but it's definitely a good start, I would say. Because if we can get, he has these 20 plus million subscribers. If every single one of those people, I'm not saying that this is how it happened. There are people like Elon Musk who donated thousands of dollars, but every single one of
Oh,
those people.
I will call. I gotta call out Elon Musk right now. Like, I don't care if he's not innovating. You know, he's running all these lithium human farms. I mean, like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, but I'd say that's probably a topic for either later or for another podcast.
Yeah,
But you know,
because this is
if
very all over
every
the place.
single one of those people was theoretically able to donate $1 to trees, who's like, a dollar is like, a dollar could buy a lot of things if you know how to spend it. Think about what 20 million could do. It can plant 20 million
Hmm.
trees. Think about what that could do for homeless shelters. Think of, like, there's 600,000 homeless people in the United States. All right.
And
There's 330 million people in the United States, counting men, women, and children.
well, I feel like I should add something on. The largest form of public housing, you'll never guess what it is. It's actually the U.S. prison system. That's literally the largest form of public housing, and some people will indirectly get themselves in jail just because they don't have a home, or at the very least,
Because at least
impoverished. Their poverty becomes a legitimate form.
because at least if you're in prison, you get free health care, food, and a place to sleep at night. And I'm not glorifying the prison system whatsoever. No, it is a terrible system and it is a terrible life to live.
Yeah, it's
But
modern slave. It's modern. It's literally modern slavery. I mean, on
yeah,
top of I mean, well, I guess
it's it is an absolutely putrid system. But I mean, would you take the putrid system, or would you take sleeping on the streets with nothing but a blanket and a jacket to keep you warm during the fucking winter? No food, no water, no access to fucking clean yourself even or get a job. Like, which would you?
and
Which of the two would you take?
that's the call out. I mean, like that's the call I'm gonna take. I mean, it's mutual aid is one. Like nobody wants to mention it, but mutual aid, like assuming that I mean, like human cooperation is still, let's say
It's a
people
way.
want to separate things. I mean, yes, in this situation, you're probably better off taking prison, but at the same time, I feel like the overlooked option, like the third option that's outside of this false dichotomy of like you either go to jail or freeze on the streets, it's mutual aid.
Yeah, but for mutual aid, we need to get the mutuation, started. Did I use that word correctly? I'm not sure I
No, I don't.
did.
That doesn't matter. Just break
We're,
language.
we're,
If anything, breaking language is the only way we evolve.
I mean,
But mutual aid, I
I'm
mean,
sure you understood what I was saying, though. So I mean,
yeah, I understand. It's just getting people to. I mean, like, see, like the whole concept of your dollar, like 20 million people donating $1. I mean, you know, getting as many people understanding that as much as if you got as many what they can and realizing that I can to help and it doesn't even have to cost me anything. That's the big switch flip right there. I mean, we'd see like a high reduction of let's say homeless populations for example.
I mean, why are people profiting off of things that we need to survive? Let's take this example. If we make a potato costs nothing. Well, then somebody says, well, what about the money for the person who planted that potato? They spent their hard work and their gasoline to run their machines and everything. Well, like, what if they don't have to pay for those resources?
Like what if we didn't have because it's like adding on to that, it's like why like what if instead of investing in production systems that are both inherently futile and destructive towards the surrounding ecology of this planet, why not invest legitimate autonomy? It was like, oh, that's where we reach the threshold in the cat doesn't if it doesn't
You walked out,
simultaneously
Jacob.
harm the environment, the people, if it doesn't simultaneously harm the environment, harm the consumers, and is in scarce demand. I mean, like in scarcity, then we're not going to use it.
Exactly,
That's one
but
of the reasons why we use. That's why we use fossil
you
fuels.
do need to be careful though, Jacob, because you're running on risky territory there. You're starting to sound like a socialist. And that's
Oh,
dangerous to
believe
have
me.
here in the United States. Because remember, kids, socialism and communism are your worst enemy, whereas capitalism is your greatest friend. He said while
Was
taking a sip from his mango juice, very facetiously.
and just remember, socialism is the system in which the workers literally own the means of production in an attempt to eventually, break out of the shell that is, the economy, or I guess you could say the false commodity of, let juice costing $5. But guess what? Under, let's say, lies in communist, maybe even anarchist society, we would have already had the means of production that produced as much mango juice that you would ever humanly need without even having to worry about that. Maybe even something better than mango juice. I don't know. Water, actually, some non-fluoridated, treated water,
The
some
fact
real
that fucking
purified shit.
water is like a $2 commodity. If the water, an essential resource to survive, a commodity that you have to buy.
It's only about 1% of the Earth's water is actually, at least inherently
2%.
drinkable, while I was going to add on that other 1% is frozen and is exponentially, like, getting withered away as we speak. And
Exactly. Though we
it's
are
like
coming
people
up
are
with
like, what?
ways to synthesize, well, not synthesize, but like to turn salt water into.
And I'll even add on to that too. In all the ocean to get all this fucking polluting to ocean acidification of the surrounding, and it's destabilizing the pH levels. People cease to realize that the smallest shift in the pH levels, it's literal
Mass
like
genocide
it
of a
it's
species.
like
It's
it
fucking
is
disgusting.
no, it is not no, it is omnicide.
Omnicide, thank you. It's extinction. It's an extinction level event, but because it's not happening to
This
humans,
is
it doesn't matter.
we are in the fifth mass extinction, also known as the Paleocene, and to follow shortly after that will be in the sixth mass extinction, known as the Anthropocene, which is human extinction.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Because because like one of the reasons why this is happening is because you got all these motherfucking capitalists who want to separate, like, try to create this false illusion that humanity is not a part of some collective ecology, and when that happens, the surrounding ecology essentially, since
It doesn't matter to them.
then, like, it's a
They
matter of time before humanity reaches the mass majority of its species.
Yeah, because it's all things for them to use. I am capitalist A. I live my life in luxury with millions of dollars. I do not care what happens after I die. I don't believe in the world after me. It's me,
Biggest
myself, and I. That is
I'd
that is
say
the
the
way.
biggest stigma of a capitalist right here is just that you got these small little cancer pockets of society that, for whatever reason, aren't just fully there, and they automatically think, well, maybe if I'm an asshole, everybody else is an asshole too, and I can reinforce that through violence. Further reinforcing that paradigm that we have to work ourselves ragged, literally fight each other in the streets just to make it by, as opposed to literally coming together in that Christ-like sense. By the way, I'm not a Christian, but I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
Actually coming together.
I mean, that was a historical moment where people came together under the following of one person, whether you believe the religious aspect
Like,
of it or not.
as Baba Ram Dass once said, there are enlightened beings. They're here, and this is just me talking right now. Like, these enlightened beings are showing, like, the point of their existence is to show that, oh, like, I'm just as smart as you are. You're no smarter than me. You can do this.
Yeah. To be quite honest, the entire idea of fucking intelligence is all subjective as well. I mean, sure, there's ideas of comprehension and stuff. I won't negate that. Yeah, like there is a physical, or not. Yeah, there's actual quantifiable. Sorry, I'm rambling a little, but there's a quantifiable way to know someone's ability to comprehend things and understand things more than another. That's That's just a simple term of development of the brain. But just to say that somebody's not able to do simple arithmetic doesn't mean that they're not intelligent.
Yeah,
Their
like
intelligence
I'd
could have
say
been
like
their processing power of their brain could be being allocated to other resources. Things like creative writing or music or art
yep.
or political thought or history or science even, you know? Well, granted mathematics and science go hand in hand, but it's just to say like just because we don't follow the fucking picture perfect ideal of a renaissance man as is a person who supposedly is a master of english history science and math, that is the model that we follow here in the united states. If somebody doesn't fit that mold, then they are in fact unworthy of your time.
You see this a lot with. I mean, like I'd say the one way they accomplish as children, I'd say vast majority of people who will even see this. Oh, I was a gifted and talented student, and then all of a sudden it just went downhill from there. That's the fucking point. They rev you up when you're most vulnerable and most likely to impress, and basically rip that away from you as soon as you're technically worth anything.
That's me. I was a gifted student, and I became advanced in math and science, and my grades started plummeting. Why? Because I stopped doing things like homework and shit. And I'm not gonna start going on a tangent about that, like, oh, homework's bullshit and stuff. Regardless of my personal view of it, it's because I didn't want to spend my time going over things that I already understand.
And that numbs you down. It breaks you down.
Yeah, I found it a waste of time. I would rather spend my time doing something like this right here. This is a good way, a productive way to be spending my time, to talk things out and to hopefully send it out to other people so then they can think, you know? This is a productive use of my time, and I didn't need to go to fucking school to be able to do this. This is my human nature.
Mo, I think this is a good stopping point.
Yeah, I would like to. I would agree. That's a perfect like an
That's a
hour
good
and six
stop.
minutes. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good stopping.
that was definitely a good discussion.
Oof. Yeah, it was a good discussion.
All right.
Oh my
So
gosh. I think that was good. I think that was good. Definitely I like hopefully by next time, because honestly, we're not like on a schedule here. We're gonna just do it any time. I mean, if I feel, because I know you have a lot more, you tend to have a lot more, reserved energy than me for whatever reason.
I'm just
If
a
I
very
let if I
energetic person.
That's the thing, I am too. I just get drained easier.
Yeah, I'm ready to go
It's just
24/7.
it's like I'm like I can walk 24/7, but I gotta like
I'm gonna have to
I need
hibernate
reserve.
for about 3 months before you do another podcast.
Oh, or like nah, I'm not gonna be like Colossal's fucking crazy because that's what he fucking does. It's like oh I'm gonna not I like wait like literally waits a year just to to upload a
We are
fucking
still
video.
recording, mind you. I wanted to do a
Oh,
proper send off
okay.
because I knew you were about to start going on the more personal things. I
Oh
wasn't
my.
sure if you.
Oh no, it's good.
All right. So yeah, that'll be it for the night. We've now entered the in 15 minutes it'll be 4:21. Uh,
Oh.
very very sad, but yeah. So thank you for listening on the podcast. I hope you enjoyed some of the things that we talked about. Um, you can follow me at Habal Baritone. That's HABBALBARITONE on Instagram. Um, I do some music things. I don't post too often, but when I do, you'll see it hopefully. And I don't know if you want to plug yourself.
Yeah, I'll plug myself in here. If you would like to follow me, you can go to my Instagram. It is Swindlel, and I'll spell that out for you. SWNDLEL. I post mostly daily content, usually shit posting, but I also will write out articles and essays and such, and occasionally the good photo and art.
All right. And good night, everybody. Or good morning, depending on when you're listening to this.